Right, so you can see that I've got stuff laid out on my table. This is the pattern we're doing. Very popular pattern, still in print. You can retails at £7.95. You can get it from Jaycott's. You can try Amazon, anywhere else that you might get your patterns from, but I know that Jaycott's do have it. When you get your pattern, turn it over and we'll look at the pattern back. You can see it's the multi-sized pattern. We have here at the right, left-hand side, don't know my left from my right, the back views of all the dresses, and then to the right of that, you've got your sizes and your fabric requirements here. So your sizes are here, your fabric requirements are there in yards for each of your dresses. Any contrasts, lining, any trims. I'm going to bring this up a little bit. There we go. Any trims that you might need. And the finished garment length, that's from the back of the neck to the hem. And the fabric suggestions. This is suggesting cotton blends, gingham. So it's all woven with no stretch. Your additional requirements, you need a zip, hook and eye, lace if you want to use it, ribbon if you want to use it, and right at the bottom, without nap, with nap, with or without nap. That's if you have a one-way pattern or you're using velvet or something, that if you think of stroking a cat, if you stroke it in the right direction, that's with nap. If you stroke it in the wrong direction, that's against the nap. So it's kind of if you've got a fabric with a pile. It's a multi-sized pattern. So here at the top, you get your sizes. So your child's chest, waist and height. So here, I will be going across to a 3-year-old to do 22-inch chest, 21.5-inch waist, and a 38-inch height. Notice this is all imperial. So when you know what size child you're making this dress for, find the age and go down that column. So going down this column, on the far left, it tells you which style dress, and under the age of the child, it tells you how much. So this is in yards. So here we need 1 5/8 yards at 45 wide, or 1 1/4 yards at 60 wide. And then we need the contrast overlay, which obviously this is the pink one with the lace overlay. So we need 1 1/4 yards at 45 wide and 1 yard at 60 wide. Likewise, B is the same. So you follow the age of your child. A 1-year-old needs this size, and you follow it all the way down. And then it tells you how much contrast or interfacing you need, how much lining you need. Again, each one is representative of a different age of child. And then we have for E, which is the hat. I generally, sorry, I can't hold this very still. I generally find that I can get things like hats out of the extra fabric that we've got. Okay, suggested fabrics we've done, and your additional requirements you've done. So for every pattern, doesn't matter whether it's for a child or an adult, look at the top for the size that you are doing. Where are we there? And you follow that column down. Now, I'm just reiterating this after a conversation that I've had with Jack this afternoon, saying that when she gets a pattern, she doesn't understand the gibberish on the back. So this hopefully is clearing up the gibberish on the back for you. Moving on, when you open your pattern, you will get sheets of instructions. On these instructions, you also have your designs, the pieces that you require. I've got ticks at the side of mine. I've made this pattern already, but it's useful to look at the style that you're going to do and mark, highlight, just put a mark against them, what pieces you need. Then you have how to use your multi-sized pattern. This is what I'm going to be showing you. What all the markings mean and how to do, such as the tailor's tacks and clipping the corners and the curves. Then you always have your cutting layouts. Depending on the width of your fabric, you have different cutting layouts, and they have the cutting layouts for every design on the pattern envelope. Okay, so we've spoken about our multi-sized pattern and cutting it out and all the rest of it. So now, this is the fabric that I'm going to use. It's a polycotton. It's printed any which way it'll work. And so we need to fold the fabric selvage to selvage. Now, when you've got your fabric, there is a selvage on it. Can you see there? Okay, so that's the selvage. And it is on both edges of the fabric from when it was woven. So just excuse me a minute. So this is the next set of videos. This is your next piece of pattern that we are going to place on our fabric. This is the bodice back, and the arrow means that it wants to be on the straight grain. So that means that it's going down the length of your fabric. So that is the warp. And that if you're not sure, if you have a piece of fabric that doesn't have the selvage on it, if you ping it one way, it's quite a tight ping. And if you ping it the other way, it's a dull ping. If you listen to your fabric, you'll be able to tell. So the warp goes along the length, and the weft, which is the one that's got the little bit of give in it in most fabrics, this one doesn't seem to have, goes from weft to right. That goes across the width of your fabric. Easy way to remember it, from weft to right. So this needs to go on the straight grain. So what we do is we place our pattern piece where we think the straight grain is going to be. And where the cross lines are here, we put a pin. Now I call this your pivot pin because it's holding the pattern in place, but it allows you to move it. Now, you take your tape measure and you put it on the line and you bring it across to the fold, to the straight edge. Now this is measuring 9 3/8. 1, 2, 3/8. Yeah, 9 3/8. Not quite 9.5. You bring your tape measure up to the other end of the arrow and you measure it, and mine is 1/8 off centre. So we need to move it just a tiny fraction towards the fold. And we need to move it again. No, we don't. We need to move it away. There we go. So I've measured it, and it now measures 9 3/8 of an inch. Just double check it. There we go. 9 3/8. And then you put a pin, without moving your fabric, your pattern, you put a pin in to secure it. And then you put a pin in at the opposite side, diagonally opposite, so that when you take your pivot pin out, your pattern won't move. And then like the others, like the rest, you can pin around in the corners as securely as you like. I would suggest for a child's pattern like this, you only really need to pin in the corner. For an adult pattern, I would definitely pin more along this long side. So now we're going to repeat with the skirt. So we move our fabric up a little bit so that we can see where our other pattern pieces have been placed. And we look at the skirt pattern. Now, we haven't cut this out precisely. What we have done is cut it out for each size, and I've managed to rip mine there. Okay, so I have folded my edges so that it is age 3. Now again, we bring the arrow, which is kind of a U shape, to the edge, the folded edge of the fabric. And we pin it in place. Now I will pin in the centre. And you pin at each corner, making sure it's not overlapping any previous patterns like I've just done. Okay. So we pin and we pin, and if you're not sure, if you think, well, I don't know whether that's going to be right, and I just want to check it and make sure, you can chuck down a couple of your pattern weights. So spread your pattern out and put a weight on it. Spread it out and stick a weight on it. Doesn't need to be heavy. In fact, that one's very light. But just put your pattern weights onto it so that you know your pattern piece is perfectly flat, your fabric is flat, and we're going to pin the corners. So there we go. Pin the corners. And like I say, if you've got a bit that is a little bit longer, we'll pin in the centre as well. Just to make sure that what we have got is a perfectly secured pattern piece. Now the next pattern piece that we want is the front skirt pattern. Again, what we've done with this is we've cut it out so that it fits all sizes, because, well, it's just a straight edge. So we'll fold it along the line that we need there, and along the line that we need at the top there, because I'm doing this for a 3-year-old. So that's the length. Now the width doesn't really matter because we're gathering this into the bodice, so it doesn't really matter how wide it is. Just the wider the piece of fabric, the more full the skirt is going to be. So again, we have to put this on the straight grain. So we want our pivot pin where the lines join, and we take our tape measure and we measure from the line to the edge, and here we are on 4 7/8, and at the top we are on 4 5. So we just want to move it a little bit closer so that we check again, and we are on 4 7/8. At this point, because we've got a bigger piece of pattern, we can use the weights again. And then, like we did previously, we put pins in the corners so that your pattern doesn't move, your fabric is nice and flat, and we're going to get a nice square piece of skirt fabric. There we go. So nice easy pattern. We only have 4 pieces for this dress. So we've got the skirt back, we've got the skirt front, And we've got the front and the back bodice. Now it's just a matter of cutting it out. Sharp scissors, and work away from yourself. You wouldn't want to start cutting here because, well, you can't get to it. So start at the edge. Let me just take that off. That's the guard for my scissors and it annoys me because they catch. And you cut right on your pattern piece. Can you see that? Because these patterns have got the seam allowance included. There we go. Cut away from yourself, slowly around the curve, so that you've got a nice curve. And there we have our bodice front cut out. Repeat with all your pieces.